Hello and welcome to another edition of the Startup Show brought to you by Inc. Authority. I'm your host, Trevor Rowley. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new Beneficial Owner Interest Reporting Requirement, which was recently enacted by the federal government of the United States of America. There have been a lot of questions about this, and we've had customers calling us wanting to get more information. We've been sharing information via email, etc., and answering questions as people have called in, but we thought, hey, this might be the perfect opportunity on the Startup Show to share some more information about this important new requirement so that you can remain compliant. So what's the background? Well, first of all, law enforcement has been asking the federal government for years and years and years to help them to try and pluck out the bad players out in the business community, those who might use corporate structures such as corporations or LLCs for fraudulent purposes. Law enforcement has said, hey, we need help in identifying who the owners are, the beneficial owners are of these types of entities so that they can be more successful in trying to pursue legal matters and put those people behind bars if need be. And it's been a long, drawn-out process because, as you might imagine, it's very difficult to put together something where you can identify the owners behind so many millions of businesses that operate in the United States. It's probably been at least a 20-year fight in the United States government to have this happen, but finally they funded this project in which the federal government is to request the information pertaining to these businesses, and beginning January 1st, 2024, this was passed and enacted and became an active requirement for new businesses. The purpose, of course, is to have a database of the beneficial owners behind the businesses in case a business should be found to be doing something against the law. It's important to note that the information that the federal government will be collecting will not be available publicly to the general public. They will be asking for and receiving information from businesses, such as the name of the business, the physical address of the business location within the United States, its EIN number, tax identification number, and also information regarding the principals, the individuals behind the business, those who are beneficial owners or those who make substantial business decisions regarding the business. They're going to need to have information such as their names and their addresses, residential addresses, and they're going to have to provide birth dates. And ultimately, they're going to have to upload a copy of either a U.S. passport or a valid state-issued ID, such as a driver's license. So while they'll be collecting that information, and on the face of it, you might say, oh, my goodness, I'm going to be providing the government with all this information, and who has access to it? The answer really is, well, really only the federal government has access to it. It's not something that somebody can Google, research, fool around with, and look at and find out information about businesses. And ultimately, it becomes available to law enforcement should the need arise. If they have probable cause to look into a business, they can request this information from the database in order to help them pursue legal action against a particular business. So let's talk about it for a minute. What is it? How do you become compliant? How do you know if you have to register with this database? Well, let's talk about some terms that the federal government uses. The first term that they use is a reporting company. A reporting company is the business that is required to register in this database. A reporting company would be any corporation or any LLC or any other type of business structure that is registered at a state level with a Secretary of State or whatever its equivalent might be. If you have to register that business with the state, then you're required to file with this federal database of beneficial ownership interest. So that would be a reporting company. When one navigates to the website where the federal government collects this information, and we'll put that information right here, but it's FinCEN.gov, FINCEN, which stands for the Financial Crime Enforcement Network. It's part of the Department of the Treasury. You can go directly to that website and you can input this information. Or if you would rather have somebody help you and hold your hand through the process, you can contact us at Inc. Authority. We've got a process where we can help you get that done as well. And you can call us at this number here, and we would be happy to do that. But let's say you decide to navigate directly to FinCEN.gov. You want to register your business there. It'll ask for information about the reporting company. Now, it's important to know this. The requirement as to when you have to actually register your business will be dependent upon when you actually formed, created, or incorporated the business. And January 1, 2024 is an important cutoff date. So if you have a brand new business that was registered with the state on or after January 1st, 2024, then you've got 90 days after your incorporation date in which to go to this database and enter all of this information. If you created your business prior, well, then there's a little bit different requirement. You still have to go and register, but if you were incorporated prior to January 1st, 2024, you've got all of 2024 in which to go to the database and register your business. In other words, you need to do it before December 31st of 2024. So you've got a lot more time if you're an existing business. If you're a brand new business, you've only got a 90-day window in which to register. So you'll navigate to the website, or you'll use a service such as the one that Inc. Authority provides to help you register and be compliant. And the first thing they'll ask for is the name of the reporting company, which will be the name of the corporation or of the LLC. They're also going to ask for the physical address of the business in the United States. It's going to ask for the jurisdiction in which the business was registered, whatever state that happened to be. It's going to ask for the tax identification number of that business. That's one section of the reporting requirement. Separately, it's going to ask for the beneficial ownership information. That's the second section. A beneficial owner is by definition an individual who has a 25% or better ownership interest in the business. So there could be more than one person that has 25% or better. Anybody that has a 25% or more interest in the business is going to have to list their name, their residential address, they're going to have to provide their birth date, and they're going to have to upload a copy of their passport or of a valid state ID or driver's license. The third section that is important is what's called the company applicant section. The company applicant section is asking for the individual who directed that business entity be registered. So in most cases, it's probably going to be one of the owners, but you may have used a service like Inc. Authority to help you register the business. In any case, there can only be a maximum of 2 company applicants. One applicant is going to be the individual that directed that the registration of the business take place, probably an owner of the company. And if you used a business service company, the business service company information is also going to be entered in there as the second applicant. Now, it's important to note that if you're one of the businesses that was registered prior to January 1st, 2024, the business service company that you may have used to help you get your business formed isn't required to be entered as a company applicant. I imagine they did that because you may have registered your business, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and maybe you don't even remember who the company was if you used a company that did it. And so if you're an existing business, you don't have to put that second applicant on there. The only applicant would be you, one of the individuals who actually directed that the entity be filed. But if you're one of the businesses that's registered after January 1st, 2024, then if you did this on your own, if you went directly to a state and filed on your own, you would be the company applicant. If you used a service company such as Inc. Authority, you would be applicant 1, and the company would be listed as applicant number 2. So it's important that you understand these different definitions, what a reporting company is, the name of the business itself, number 2, who the beneficial owners are, or those who have substantive control and decision-making in the business. In other words, somebody could be required to be listed as a beneficial owner, even if they don't actually own a portion of the company. But if they are a C-suite type of individual, a CEO, a CFO, a COO who can make substantial decisions about the business, they still have to be listed there in the beneficial ownership information. And then finally, the company applicant, who would be the principal party, you, and potentially a second applicant who could be a business formation company. Now, are there any exemptions to having to register? And the answer is there is. In fact, in typical government fashion, there are 23 different categories of exemptions. However, 21 of those categories really apply to businesses that have to be registered and provide this information in the normal course of their business anyways. These would be businesses such as banks, insurance companies, investment companies, and so forth. Probably categories that would not apply to the everyday small business owner. The 2 categories that might apply to a small business owner would be these. One of the exemptions says that you don't have to register your beneficial ownership information at FinCEN.gov if you are considered a large operating company. And then they define what a large operating company is. Among other things, a large operating company is going to have at least 20 full-time equivalent employees and have at least $5 million in gross receipts. And so if you qualify in both of those categories, you may be exempt and not be required to register your information. The other exemption that might be important to know is one that is called an inactive business exemption. Now, an inactive business exemption is one where the business obviously is no longer active and where the business has not received any money more than $1,000 or spent any money more than $1,000 in the last year and doesn't hold any assets of any kind. But the most important category within this exemption is this. It only applies to businesses that were in existence before January 1 of 2020. So if you've been incorporated after January 1, 2020, so somewhere between then and now, even though you may be inactive, you would still be required to register your company's information in this database, essentially because you haven't been inactive long enough, I suppose. But if you've been inactive at least 4 years, going back that time frame, and you can say that you don't hold any assets and you haven't transferred funds or received funds, then you may apply for that exemption and not have to register your company's information. So there are a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross, and there's information that's available from the federal government at FinCEN.gov. And of course, we would be happy to walk you through any of the questions that you might have about this requirement. Are there any downsides should you say, hey, I just don't want to do it? And the reality is that there is. The federal government has imposed penalties upon businesses that neglect to register this information, which could lead to penalties up to $500 per day, up to $10,000 in total for failing to file this information. And they also have a clause in there where they could actually impose jail time upon somebody if they willfully neglect to register their business in this database. So it is the law. It is something that you're going to have to be aware of and you're going to have to do. You're going to need to register in this database. And again, not terribly difficult to do. The government says right on the website that for somebody doing this for the first time, that it may take them up to 3 hours to read all of the instructions and to complete the registration. If that sounds too complex for you, you might find a company like Inc Authority that might have an easier solution where we can collect the pieces of information that we need from you and we can register on your behalf. Contact us directly at this phone number if you'd like to do that. Again, avoid the penalty, understand the law, know what it is that you have to do, and you won't have any issues. Now, how often do you have to make this registration? That would be the next question. And the answer is, it's really a one-time registration. It's not anything that you have to go in and do and repeat on an annual basis. You enter that information. Now, should any of the information that you enter initially change, you are required to go back to the database and update that information. So let's say an address changes, or there's a new owner, or an owner leaves, or something like that. You do have to go in and you have to amend your application. They don't charge a fee for that, but there is something where you have to go in and keep that information up to date should changes be necessary. Well, I hope that this has helped you a little bit to understand just a little bit more what the requirement is for the beneficial ownership interest reporting requirement. It all falls under the heading of the Corporate Transparency Act. Again, the purpose of the Corporate Transparency Act is to help law enforcement in their efforts to make sure that people are not using corporations and LLCs for illegal or fraudulent purposes. And so that's about it. That's everything that you need to know about the beneficial ownership interest reporting requirement, the Corporate Transparency Act. Should you need more information, feel free to reach out to us here at Inc Authority. This has been Trevor Rowley for The Startup Show. I've enjoyed speaking with you today. Hey, now would be a great time to hit that like button and make sure that you don't miss any of our other content by making sure that you subscribe. Look forward to seeing you next time.